for as long as I have been a Unitarian Universalist, I have heard this thing that we say to each other, which is something along the lines of, you know, our religion kind of, like we take the tough route because we don't give people an assignment of what they need to believe. You know, we don't have a creed. You know, we don't give people a prescription for how to live, and instead people have to choose what their path is going to be, and they have to weigh whether the beliefs that they hold are worthy of having. Now, I've always thought that this sentiment was, you know, maybe a little bit self-congratulatory. I think that every religious tradition, every religious belief and way of being in the world, every religious practice, like, it has its own sets of benefits and its challenges. I think for people who do ascribe to a religion that has a more rigid set of beliefs, like that can present its own kinds of difficulties, right? At the same time, there is something true, I think, to that sentiment in which we really do trust people to determine for themselves what is going to be good and right and true in this life. One of the ways that we name that is in the Article 2 bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association, which says that we affirm the search for truth and meaning for each person. Every person has the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So I kind of had that in mind this month as I was picking my way through Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness, as one does. Evan asked me this week, like, what were you doing this week? And I said, like, I was in a cafe reading Being and Nothingness. And he was like, of course you were. Like, you are, and and like, the deliciousness of the stereotype of reading that in a cafe is great, because that's where Sartre would write and where he would think. But I'm reading it, and I had this sense in reading parts of it where I thought, like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like, if I smoked right now, I would need a cigarette. Because there are parts in it that I think are so apropos to Unitarian Universalism, though I'm sure that Sartre, I'm not sure, but I would guess he never had any concept of like what that was or how his, beliefs and philosophy would have intersected with Unitarian Universalism. But he is really talking about how to choose to live a life when you are the one who it gets to decide what is going to be true and right and good for you. So a couple of things about like what he says in that book. He talks about existentialism as existence before essence. So what the heck does that mean? His thought is that we exist before we ascribe anything an essence, a purpose, or meaning. First, we are thrown into the world, we exist as human beings, and then we have the freedom to determine what is going to have meaning and value and truth associated with it. And so for Sartre, he wouldn't say that it makes any sense for us to ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Life doesn't have meaning until you give it meaning. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that he talks about authenticity. Authenticity is a really important concept for Sartre. And authenticity means a couple of different things. Like, one is that, if you're going to live an authentic life, you can't make things up about your past. You can't say, I grew up in California when you didn't. You can't say, I graduated from the University of Michigan when you didn't. You can't say that you're an expert in marine biology when you're not. Like, those things would be inauthentic. And then he also says that, authenticity entails being true to, what is your experience in a particular moment. And so if you're feeling sad, if you tell people that you're feeling happy, that's inauthenticity. So one of the marks for him is living an authentic life. And people might ask, well, if you're the one who gives your life meaning, don't you then get to decide whether to be authentic or inauthentic? Absolutely. Absolutely you do. But for Sartre, that question of authenticity takes on particular weight because that is precisely the moment in which life is being given its meaning. That act, that free act to give life meaning in that particular moment is profoundly important. In a way, for Sartre, that's all there is. It's that act that takes on the weight, the responsibility, the burden of freedom, and you can decide whether you think it's worthy to be authentic or inauthentic in that moment. The next thing he talks about is good faith and bad faith, and I really like this concept. So for Sartre, if you were to say something, and I think this is just like so apropos Unitarian Universalism, for Sartre, if you were to say something along the lines of, I did it because the Bible told me I have to, he would say that's bad faith, which we might think like, well, but that seems like it's good faith. That's like the thing that faithful people would do. And he would say, no, that is bad faith. Because you didn't have to do it because the Bible told you you did. You chose to do it because the Bible told you that. He was writing in the context of fascism. He was writing it in the context of like the Nazi occupation of France. And for him, this took on particular significance, right? People would say, I had to do it because those are the orders of the fascist government. And he would say, no, like you may have faced profound consequences for not doing it, but you still had a choice. His concept was that you had radical freedom, even in the most constrained circumstances. And then the last thing I want to mention from him is that he talks about how the decision that we make to live a life doesn't just impact us, it impacts everybody. So here we go with kind of the Unitarian Universalist idea of the interconnected web. And he really did think that. So about that, because for him, when you make a decision to live, say, in an honest way, you are offering up to others an idea that is a life that's of value. Similarly, if you seek to go about your life in a way that's corrupt and manipulative, then you are suggesting to others that that is a worthy life. And we can think about it this way, in just this really like practical way. The more we act in ways that are corrupt, the more corrupt the world becomes, right? The more necessary it becomes for others to act in a similar way. And yet, if you model honesty consistently, that provides a context in which others can be honest as well. And so all of this, I think, suggests then that there is this weight that is placed upon our actions, which is of profound importance. Our freedom to act in a particular moment is what gives life its meaning, and it offers us a way of thinking about our actions that aren't constrained to, I had to do this because a religious text told me I have to. I didn't have to do this because that's what the creed of this church said. Instead, you have the freedom to choose that search for meaning and truth. And it's not a sort of like irrelevant sort of pastime to think about that. Instead, it bears this particular significance. And so I've been thinking about authenticity this week, and something surprising happened in terms of my reactions to things. And I think kind of reading Being in Nothingness this month maybe gave me some insight about how I'm going to choose to respond. And I give you fair warning that this will be maybe a surprising thing for me to say. I woke up on June 1st, and I turned on the computer, and I looked at social media, and I hadn't even thought of it, but I was like, oh, it's Pride Month. And I saw the rainbows and the merch and people planning things that are, uplifting and joyful. And I just had this visceral response where it was like, no. And I had to I closed my computer, I got up, I took a walk, and I was like, what's that? What's that all about? And of course, it's not because I don't support pride and LGBTQ rights. That would be a truly surprising conclusion for me to offer all of you. But that response came about because it's been a particularly difficult year for queer people. The Supreme Court, saying that there can be no ban on conversion therapy. My first husband was forced into conversion therapy, and it was torture for him. And then I know people in my life personally who are now fleeing the country. It's hit me that this is actually happening. One of those people is my sister. And so I looked at all of this kind of happy pride, and I was just like, no, that is not where I'm at. And then I thought, but I have to, right? I have to because I'm a gay man, and that's what's expected of me as being part of the LGBTQ community. I have to because I'm a liberal minister at a progressive church, and that's what's expected of me. And then I just had this realization of no, that would be inauthentic. And that would be modeling to other people that if they have difficult feelings, a difficult experience, they need to swallow that and shut up about it and put on a show for others. And I decided I'm not going to do that. And so I wrote a piece and put it up on my Facebook for anybody who wants to read it. It's called "I'm Not Celebrating Pride This Year." Now, I want to say a few things about that. If for some reason, anybody here leaves and says the purpose of Lucas's sermon today was that he says none of us should celebrate Pride. We should all be sad instead. Then the whole purpose of my sermon has been lost. I'm sorry that I wasted your time. I'm sorry I wasted your time. I want instead for you to be true and honest and authentic to what your experience is. And if you feel this is a particular moment where we've got to celebrate pride and show queer joy in a way that we have never shown it before, then by all means, I am 100% behind you, and I am excited that you get to do that. And also, if you feel you're in a place that doesn't have that same experience of queer joy in this moment, or the joy of allyship, or whatever, I don't think you should feel the expectation that that's something that you have to perform for other people. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. What's really important is that the acts that you do in this life have significance. They represent to others the shape of a life that you think is worthy of living. I think that there's something deep and profound about our faith for saying that that is what is at the center. May we go forth from here and find that deep search for truth and meaning in new and surprising and ever unexpected ways. Amen and blessed be.